So this album will follow up from your last release in 2016, and it came at quite a turbulent time in your lives. I wondered, how was it going into this album? Was the process any different? How did it start?
Uh, well, that's a loaded question. We went through, there's no way to kind of, you mentioned a turbulent time in our lives, and it was quite rough there for a minute. We went through a lot of loss. We lost a lot of people, kind of one after the other, starting with Chris Cornell. We were on tour with Soundgarden, opening for them, which was just the most amazing experience. And then to have it end so tragically was, heartbreaking and shocking and devastating, and all the words that go along with that. It came at I was not. It was so stunning that I was not emotionally equipped to handle that, I don't think. And so, we were in the middle of a touring cycle with Who You Selling For when that happened. And I came to the realization that I was not in a great place to be public. And so I left tour. I went home to try to kind of regroup and process what had happened. And as soon as I started to kind of get my feet back on the ground and started to kind of move forward, I'd written a few songs, and I was calling our producer Kato, and I was like, let's get in the studio. Like, we got to do something. Like, I don't know if this is for a record or for what, but let's, start the process of moving forward. And as soon as we started to kind of put those plans in motion, I got the phone call that Kato died in a motorcycle accident. And that was really the nail in the coffin for me, I guess, for lack of a better phrase, where I sunk very, very down. I went into this very, very dark place into just depression and substance abuse, and just this very, very dark black hole of a mental state. And I didn't really know how to get out of it. And I didn't really know if I wanted to. I kind of hit a point where I kind of just gave up on everything. Like, I gave up on life. I kind of didn't see the point anymore. And to make a very long story short of dealing with all of that and everything I went through, it was music. I know it sounds really cliche, but it was rock and roll that really saved my life. Like, I eventually turned to the thing that's always been there for me. I turned to music. I started at the beginning again, because that's the only thing I knew how to do. So I started with the Beatles. I started listening to all the Beatles records and all the Beatles demos and, the anthology and everything. And that eventually led to listening to all the other, bands that I love and I've mentioned, which eventually led to me being able to listen to Soundgarden again without like falling apart. And that eventually led to me picking up a guitar and just starting to play songs again, just for the fun of it, which eventually led to me starting to write. And this album, I think, is very different in a lot of ways from our previous records, in the sense that I really didn't have to try to write this album. It kind of, if anything, I probably tried not to. It kind of poured out of me in a way that I can't really describe. Like, it just, one day it just kind of all overflowed, and the writing of this record and the creation of this record, I really credit it to the reason that I'm still here and the reason that I'm, alive today. Not to sound super dramatic, but I really hit a point where I had to kind of make a conscious decision of death or move forward, and I chose to move forward. So I really consider this album a rebirth in a lot of ways, personally and as a band. It really feels almost like the first album again. So something that it's very obviously very near and dear to my heart, but something that I'm also just extraordinarily proud of, and my kind of my humble opinion. I think that we really made something special, and I think it might be our best album yet. So I'm really excited that it's finally coming out.